Alright, so we're done with that. That will screw onto there. This is my nice, oh, gotta fix that up. And this, let me see, it's going to go on there. Just going to get that to fit into the groove in there. And that is a lovely outlet, but I'm not going to screw that in yet. That's nice and tight. Too tight for me to get it out. Now, because I'm putting this in the water, I'm going to use this piece of PVC, but I'm going to bring the power out of there because I don't want to take it out of the cap, because every time I move it I'm going to be affecting the seal of the wires. So in this case I'm going to mark a spot in here, and I'm going to drill a couple of holes for the outlet wires. The other thing I'm going to do is to get a couple of capacitors and solder these on to reduce any possible interference in the boat. So there are two jobs I'll do right now. Okay, we'll pull this apart, put some wires on there. That's all silenced. Put a couple of holes in there where the wires are going to go. And now we're at the stage where we're almost ready to assemble. And what I want to do is to take that end piece and glue it onto there, because that's where the O-ring is going to run. So I'll do that now with super glue. So now we're at the stage where we have to put the O-rings in. This little O-ring here is a nice little fit for the end of there, and its internal dimension is 2 millimeters, external is 5, and it's 1.5 through. This O-ring is in my O-ring box, and I know that it will fit pretty well with the end cap. What I'm going to say to you right now is that this is a good stage to head down to your O-ring shop with your end cap and with this, because ultimately you want something that's going to fit really closely around the end of that shaft. Right, so what we need to do now is I push this down nicely onto the motor. I've got some silastic here, and I'm just going to float it in around there. No matter what I do to this, I'm not going to make this really sealable without silastic. Bit of a dirty trick, but it saves you a lot of money. Just making sure that fully covers the base. Now we take our little O-ring, and seat it down. Now I'm not going to press that down too hard. But I'm not going to touch it now till tomorrow. So that's nicely sealed onto there. The next step is just to put this top on, and the first part of that process is going to be putting some silastic under the head of the screws. So I want, as you can see, the silastic to go under the screws plus in between the two parts. Okay, that's the first part done. Don't mind if we overdo this a little bit. So that's nice and tightly together. Important to do that. Good. It's nice. Give it a little spin. Okay. All right. I've just drilled this out, and I'm going to put this little piece of pipe in here, which is my pressure test, etc. So, I'm going to mix up some epoxy right here. And the first thing is going to be to put some on there. That's all good. Push it down. Next thing, put some epoxy on the wires. Trick of sealing the wires is to get the epoxy on and then just push them back in. Pulls the epoxy in. Okay, that's almost done. The next step is to get my outlet pipe or inlet pipe, whichever way it goes. Let me think of okay, that's done. Made a bit of a mess of that. Then we put that onto there. And it's as good as done. That's a really nice fit. Doesn't need any help. But I do have on the side of this a hole that I can drill out and put a 3mm thread into, and I can put a grub screw into it. And the thing is, if I line up my screw with this hole, I can tighten it up. Very smart, I think. But that's all looking good. Alright, this is it. I've put the cap on, we've got that on, we've got the impeller on, the whole thing should now be ready. And because I've got this nice little tube at the top, I'm now going to put this onto here and I'm going to give it a pressure test. Now I might say that when you go to the O-ring shop and you get an O-ring to fit, you'll be fine. I'm using a box of O-rings and they don't always fit perfectly, and this one was a bit loose. So what I've used is this butyl tape. It's actually called Nitto tape, and what this stuff does is it actually stretches like that, and if you cut it finely and you stretch it and you put it on the base of the O-ring, the bottom part of the O-ring, a couple of loops around, it fits. And this stuff not only sits in the bottom, it actually glues together so it becomes permanent. So that's really, really useful. You might not need to do that. Okay, now I've put that onto there and I'll use a bit of pressure. There is no air coming out of that anywhere. That is bloody fantastic. This thing is now sealed. I'm going to have some fun now and just see how this responds. That's what I call a good pump. And now that I've had it in the water, that is so good. Take that off, let the air get in. The perfect pump. That'll last for a very, very long time. This is the new pump and valve system. I'm now going to fill the tank. Alright, so it's beautifully at neutral buoyancy. Let's surface it. That's it. That's a really good pump. Perfect configuration for this. It's been in the water for ages, there's not a drop inside it, and I'm just letting whatever moisture is in there now just dissipate. That nice and low, it all works very well.